on this.
All right. Tony Abbott, on another matter, have you met Archbishop Pell during the election campaign?
Not that I can recall.
Not that you can recall, because we believe that you've had at least one meeting with him quite recently.
Well,
you don't recall that? At the Presbytery in Sydney?
Actually, now that you mention it, I did meet with Cardinal Pell. So what? Why shouldn't I meet with Cardinal Pell?
But why couldn't you recall meeting him, I think, 10 days ago?
Well, look, whenever it was. So what? Why shouldn't I meet Cardinal Pell? Cardinal Pell is a fine man. He made a very good statement the other day about the Labor Party's education policy. Why shouldn't I meet with him?
Well, the reason we're asking about this, obviously, is that your behind-the-scenes activities in the '98 election were quite renowned, and I'm wondering, is there any possibility that in your discussions with Private Pell, with Cardinal Pell, which you couldn't recall a moment ago, in those discussions, did you actually bring up the issue of private schools?
No.
Not at all?
No. So
what issues were discussed?
Well, Tony, I may well have been going to confession to Cardinal Pell. I may well have been seeking pastoral counselling from Cardinal Pell. What's so sinister about that? Cardinal Pell is one of the greatest churchmen that Australia has seen. I am a very imperfect Catholic. Why shouldn't I go and seek counsel? Why shouldn't I go and trespass on the time occasionally of someone like Cardinal Pell?
The question,
if you spent more time with Cardinal Pell, your life might be more interesting.
I haven't spent any time at all with Cardinal Pell, as it turns out, but that's beside the point. I mean, you're a political operative, and the question is not whether he gave you counselling, but whether you gave him counselling, because only a short time after your visit, out came this letter signed by 2 archbishops condemning Labor's education policy.
So you think that I put words into the mouth, not only of Cardinal Pell, but of Archbishop Jensen?
I'm simply asking whether that was a matter of your conversations, which a moment ago...
What you haven't explained is how you can make one promise in one month and then completely change it the next. What happened in that month where you had this sudden explosion of vision?
Again, Kerry, people will make their own judgments about me, and if
but I'd like you to explain it. You know, Tony Abbott feels with conviction we will not have a new tax. In any way, shape or form, we won't have a new tax. A month later, you do.
Well, you know, again, Kerry, I know politicians are going to be judged on everything they say, but sometimes in the heat of discussion, you go a little bit further than you would if it was an absolutely calm, considered, prepared, scripted remark, which is one of the reasons why the statements that need to be taken absolutely as gospel truth is those carefully prepared, scripted remarks.
So every time you make a statement, we have to ask you whether it's carefully prepared and scripted or whether it's just something on the fly.
Look,
seriously, this is a very serious question.
But all of us, Kerry, all of us, when we're in the heat of verbal combat, so to speak, will sometimes say things that go a little bit further.
Mr Abbott, we're not all leaders of major political parties who are either Prime Minister or aspiring to be.
True.
Would you agree that there is extra onus on you to be accurate and honest and make promises that can be trusted?
Absolutely right.
But that time you couldn't.
But the thing is, I made a statement in a radio interview in February, and then I think in March, I made a commitment to paid parental leave. Now,
which was the opposite of what you'd said a month before.
It wasn't absolutely consistent with what I said the month before.
It was the opposite. One month you say no new tax, the next month you say a $2.7 billion tax.
But this is an argument that we could well have had in March, and we did have it in March, and a lot of people pointed out back then that there was a bit of inconsistency, and I accept that.
But this business about times when what you say can be believed or trusted and times when we should accept that it's not necessarily the truth. It makes it very hard for people. I mean, if we go back...
If you gave an Andrew Olley lecture, that would obviously be the distilled essence of what Kerry O'Brien thinks on a particular issue.
But I'll say again, I'm not aspiring to be the Prime Minister of Australia no matter what I say. But what you are saying is that the public are not going to know from one day to the next when you are saying something that's absolutely rock solid and when it's not. Are there two Tony Abbotts, the real Tony Abbott and the Tony Abbott who tailors what he has to say to whatever audience he has in front of him? We've talked about, I'll say this quickly, we've talked about the time you told the audience in a Victorian country town that the climate change argument was, quote, absolute crap. And then you told me later that you were just being loose with your language. It didn't represent my true position, you said. How are we to know when we're hearing your true position and when you're fudging the truth?
I mean, people will make their judgments of me, Kerry, and I accept that, and I understand that. And some of them will say, aha, he said this in a radio interview in February, and then a month later in March, he made a commitment on paid parental leave, which is not completely consistent with that former statement.
It was the opposite. It was the opposite of the first statement, Mr Abbott.
And some people, Kerry, will judge me very harshly
But
about
I'd like
that.
to hear you acknowledge this. It wasn't just a little bit different, it was the complete opposite. One was no new tax, the other was a new tax of $2.7 billion within a month.
There will be no carbon tax under the government I lead.
Oh, hello.
G'day.
I just heard your man out there saying no one's asked about the carbon tax.
Oh, I think it's probably one of our media. It was this one
Probably.
here. Hello.
Well, I said I'd just like to ask one.
Sure.
Why did you lie to us?
Right. Well, I can talk to you
And
about
why are you continuing to
Well-
lie and say, well, you know, I didn't really mean to lie?
Well, I can explain all of that to you.
I've listened to you for months. I've watched Parliament.
Yeah.
You're still lying.
Well, I can give you an answer right now if you'll let me. What I want to do is put a price on carbon pollution. Big polluters going to pay.
I understand.
Yeah,
I've
so
heard
we-
this 100
Well,
times.
if I can just finish, so we'll have less of it in the atmosphere. There's
I understand that.
Which is a good thing. There's two main
I'm not
ways.
stupid.
No, I'm suggesting that. Two ways of doing it. One is effectively a tax, a fixed price.
Look, Julia, I've heard you. I've heard you on Q&A. I've heard you for over a year.
Yep.
But the thing that sticks in my craw is you stood up and said there will be no carbon tax.
And I was talking...
And a few months later,
Yeah.
it's all coming out, excuse me, a few months later, you've changed your mind.
No, I haven't changed my mind. No, that's... If I can explain that...
how could you say...
I did talk in the election campaign about the need to put a price on
Yeah.
carbon, and I talked about what's called a cap and trade scheme, where you cap the amount of
And
carbon
then at the
pollution.
very end you said, there will be no carbon tax under my government.
Absolutely, I did say that. I talked in the election campaign about putting a cap on carbon pollution, an emissions trading scheme. We're going to get there via a temporary carbon tax to where I talked about during the election campaign. So it's a different route home than the one I thought we were going to use, but we'll get to the same outcome. I talked about
same
election. Well, I didn't mean to mislead, and I didn't foresee all of the circumstances of this Parliament. But you know, we're going to get there to do the right thing by our
When you get in
environment.
by manipulation, I'm sure it's not so good.
Well, yeah, you're making an assumption. Didn't mean to mislead anyone, and we're going to get where I wanted to go.
Yeah, well, when you start
Good,
telling
good.
the truth, I'll listen to you.
Well, that was. That was. Okay.
We will continue, particularly through the support of the men and women of the Australian Defence Force, to help Tonga get back on its feet.
But the recovery mission won't be easy. Tonga's main international airport remains...
It's just mate, take your time. I tell you, we had a bit of that up in Port Moresby. Yeah. Anyway, it was a good meeting. It was at Moresby. The toilets isn't anything. We're about to be, have water lapping at your place.
I have a lot of respect for your country. I have a lot of respect and a lot of friendship for your people. I just say when we have respect, you have to be true and you have to behave in line and consistently with this value.
Do you think he lied to you?
I don't think. I know. Consistently with this value.
Do you think he lied to you?
I don't think. I know. I don't think. I know. I don't think. I know. I don't think. I know.
First, I want to take an opportunity. We have some guests from down under, the One Nation, and Gun Rights Australia.
We're not even allowed to own guns in Australia for self-protection for women. They're not even allowed to have mace. It's insane. And we've been importing all these Muslims into Australia. We have 230,000 people coming in a year. Our population's only 25 million, and it's a really dangerous book.
One nation could get $10 million.
Yep.
You'd pick up eight Senate seats.
That guarantees you balance of power. I mean,
Out of how many?
the whole government by the balls.
If another mass shooting happens in Australia, he advises One Nation to smear supporters of gun control by accusing them of exploiting the tragedy.
How dare you stand on the graves of those children to put forth your political agenda?
Yeah.
Completely shame them to the whole idea.
I love that.
It's like you.
One Nation has been caught trying to trade Australia's tough gun laws for cash from America's most powerful gun lobby, the NRA. But Pauline Hanson's henchmen, who were filmed in an undercover sting, say they've been taken out of context, and some of their comments came after a long drinking session.
Roger,
it was a sting 3 years in the making, and the target was One Nation.
Dirty Harry, so you know what? Don't mess with me.
Television network Al Jazeera followed a gun lobbyist.
Roger Muller is the public face of Gun Rights Australia.
As he made deep contacts with America's powerful National Rifle Association.
Roger Muller, GRA. Day one here in Louisville at the NRA conference.
But he was not what he seemed.
We created Gun Rights Australia as a front in order to infiltrate the pro-gun lobby and understand how they operate.
The fake activist then led One Nation Chief of Staff James Ashby and Queensland Senate candidate Steve Dixon on a trip to America to seek donations from the US gun lobby.
If they threw $10 million at us, we win a heap of seats, bunch of seats in the Senate.
Their pitch to the Americans was a promise to use that power to change Australia's tough gun laws.
We're not even allowed to own guns in Australia for self-protection for women.
It was all filmed by the fake lobbyists, and all happened in the lead-up to Parliament banning foreign donations.
So I believe foreign donations should be stopped.
That's utterly at odds with her key lieutenant's mission to America, as they imagined what foreign gun lobby millions could buy them.
If you went 20, you would own the lower house and upper house.
The reaction was swift and furious.
We have wonderfully strong gun laws. They have saved Australian lives. They are an example around the world. And for heaven's sake, don't sell them out.
How dare they seek to trade those for money and votes from a foreign buyer?
I think it was a betrayal of the Australian political system.
But it added fuel to Labor's call for the coalition not to preference One Nation at the May election.
He should just simply say they're going to put One Nation last.
Something the Prime Minister won't do.
I don't want their preferences, I want their primary votes.
One Nation's response to being caught soliciting foreign donations is to call on the police to use Australia's foreign interference laws to investigate the TV network.
It was employed by a Middle Eastern country, Al Jazeera, to come to Australia as a spy to infiltrate into Australian politics.
But James Ashby knew last year that One Nation's secret mission to America was a risk.
If it gets out, and rock the boat.
On that point, his judgment was good.
And Nine's political editor Chris Ullman joins me from Canberra. Chris, will this damage One Nation at the upcoming federal election?
Perversely, it might do One Nation no damage at all, Pete. Like those who backed Donald Trump, many One Nation voters are deeply suspicious of the mainstream media. They believe it's a creature of the political left and is determined to destroy their heroes. So media attacks on One Nation are seen by its supporters as a sign that the party is doing its job in shaking up the arrogant ruling elites. The real trouble will be for the coalition, which will have to make a decision on whether it swaps preferences with the minor party. If it does that, then votes won in the bush could be lost in the city, Pete.